and the rear tyre just squared off. It was like it happened overnight. It probably obviously didn't, but it felt like it did. Right, hello everybody. So it was. I thought this Wednesday's episode would just be a little bit of a chat about just things that will keep it a little bit safer during the winter as we sort of go through into autumn and winter. If, like me, you like riding throughout the year, and it's just some things you forget about, isn't there? Sometimes when you're riding your bike, you suddenly think, "Oh God, I forgot all about that." So I thought we'd take a couple of things in order. Yeah. First one being, which seems really stupid, and I've been caught out with this so many times, is tinted visors. Now I tend to, these days, not use tinted visors, and I tend to use my sunglasses when I'm riding. One thing, just because I just sort of tend to find them more comfortable, and some of the, you get the little, this has got one, the little short tint that drops down. I find them a bit uncomfortable because sometimes sort of knock you on the nose. I don't know if you ever noticed that. But so I tend to use sunglasses. But of course, if you've got a full tinted visor, the problem you have is that as we come into autumn winter, we got less daylight hours. So you end up with that situation where you're out for the a long ride, darkness comes and you can't see jack. Anybody been caught out like that before? I have. Because I can't really ride without any sort of eye protection. I don't know anybody rides without eye protection. I see people riding without glasses or something, and I just think, geez, how the hell are you doing that? But yeah, so watch your visors. If you need to change back to a clear visor, remember to start thinking about doing that now, because you won't get caught out. Or at least put some sort of glasses in your pocket. But yeah, tints are a nightmare once it gets dark because you can't see anything. Talking of seeing anything, remember to check your lights. How often do we actually, I rarely ride at night because I don't particularly need to, but I don't particularly like riding at night. Even on my trip to away to North Africa, I wasn't riding at night, didn't feel the need to, didn't need to take that risk. And it's similar here really, although summer evenings I've sort of ridden in the dark, but it's when you get caught out that you realise the first time is, oh, these headlights are rubbish. And particularly I'm riding the Kawasaki today. They're still spluttering and coughing for me, but is that you realise that the lights on your bike are just not that good. We think of modern motorbikes. My Africa Twin was like this. It was like a dying sun. It was so bright. God. But this bike will be probably appalling at night for light. I don't have any auxiliary lights. But check your lights generally. Just check what you've got. Do you need a new bulb? Do you need stuff like that? Just watch your lights. So that's more the sort of physical thing on the bike for that really. What else? Check your mirrors. Check your mirrors. You know what? It's something some of this will be for safety riding during the evening, but just check that your mirrors are really good, and that if you are riding in winter, when people generally ride with their lights on anyway, that you're not going to get too much sort of, that your mirrors are clean, they're not glaring up to you, and that your mirrors are in good order, and just the bike in general is in good order. Okay, and that brings me on to my next point: tyres. Tyres are really important. I said this the other day. You only have sort of like 5mm of rubber sitting on that tarmac, and as a general rule, you might think it might be fair to say that roads like they are today will be damper in the winter and autumn they are in the summer. When we do get a bit of rain, they don't dry out so quickly, and that rubber's really important. Is it time to change your tyres? Do you need something a bit of better grip? Where you've got away with it during the summer, during the winter you're not. and it's winter where it's going to show up the deficiency in your tyre, particularly if your tyres have started to harden off, which is quite common. Now on this Kawasaki in particular, the tyres are actually okay, but they are quite a few years old, and I will be changing these just for safety reasons. So do watch that. You know, and sometimes tyres fall off a cliff, don't they? I can remember having a Honda DeVille, and the tyres seemed perfectly fine on that bike, and then all of a sudden the handling of the bike went really weird, and the rear tyre just squared off. It was like it happened overnight. It probably obviously didn't, but it felt like it did. I suddenly noticed that I could almost come up to a halt, lift my legs up, and I wouldn't fall over. So it's just worth remembering that. Another thing I think is quite important is comfort, and this is one of my subscribers said this to me the other day when I was talking about bikes, and said about when I was looking at those heated gloves. Remember your discount code. Heated gloves, they're quite important, or heated grips. It's very easy to get distracted when you're riding, when you're uncomfortable, when you're doing this and tightening, just, do you know what I mean? You need to make sure that you're not being distracted by that, because that's one of the biggest causes of accidents for anybody on motorbikes, is being distracted. And that's the thing, is that you're paying attention. Oh, my trousers are getting wet. Oh bloody hell, my jacket's not done up. And you take your eye off the road, and it's that point when someone stops in front of you, you know, or somebody pulls out. Really important. And that also brings one to the other point about being distracted. How often have people said to me on my channel, you left your flipping indicators on? And I do, and it's a real pain of mine. And sometimes some of the excuse could be that I've got camera equipment on there. But that brings me on to that point about when you're doing YouTubing, you know, be careful about being distracted by cameras, you know, because a lot of people don't do YouTube, but they have cameras on their bikes. Don't try and look and see what your camera's doing. If it's not right, it's not right. You just have to film it again. But those things do happen, and they're distractions you don't want. So making sure that things are done up. You know, I have a mirror on the Harley Davidson, right? It's the offside mirror, which seems to flop around in its ball mount. It's just that I need to change it. But the amount of times that I'm actually fiddling with it, you know, it's a distraction. I know it's bad, I know I shouldn't be doing it, and I should get on and fix it. And that's the thing, you know, I'll tell you these things, but, you know, don't do as I do, do as I say. So it's those little things, those distractions, which become heightened in winter, you know, when the road's bad, when you don't have as much time to put your foot on the brakes, when you can't slow down so hard, when you're not haven't got ABS. You know, don't rely on ABS to save you when you've got to stop quickly. You know, there's a distraction on this bike at the moment because it runs a little bit rough. You know, when you're chugging along, you get a little bit of, which is quite entertaining. You know, if I open a throttle and open the jets up, she's good as gold. But, you know, it takes a while for this bike to warm up. You can get distracted. I'm kneeling down, I'm checking the choke. Is the choke right? You know, all that sort of stuff. Get these things sorted. Get them sorted through the winter. I know I'm teaching you to suck eggs, but they're just things that just keep you alive a little bit. You know, that might just save you that little bit of worry when you're out and about. It's the same when I go out on my Triumph, you know, this couple of things. This is quite a key one. If you've got classic bikes, quite often the gear shift is on the other side. It's not on the left, it's on the right. How often I've been out on my Triumph and you know, I thought, oh, better start slowing down here, and I've hit the wrong pedal. You know, you borrow somebody's bike, an old Enfield, you know, an early Bullet that's got the gear shift on the other side. It's your muscles remember what to do on your normal bike. They won't on a new bike, so you end up, you know, thumping down on the gear shifter and cranking down because you've now gone into first gear. Just things like that. Just, you know, be aware. Ride within the road limits. Particularly now in winter, you're going to see in the middle of roads and stuff, I've had a lot of rain, you're going to see gravel attracting to the middle of the roads. You know, watch that. You know, look ahead of yourself. Don't look at your kit. Look ahead of yourself and see what's coming up in the road. I don't know whether you can hear this bike sort of I really do need to get those carburetors away now. I think it needs rejetting myself, but so yeah, comfort. Make sure you've got warm clothing on. I always layer up when I put my clothing on. I tend to put long johns on. Once we're now getting into this time of year, stick long johns on, just thin ones. Makes huge difference. Always have a set of waterproofs in the bags, if I can. And I tend to ride that. I'm lucky I can, you know, choose the bike. I tend to ride the bike that's got the pannies which can take the my waterproofs. So it's all right when you open it up. So stuff like that. Footwear. Make sure your footwear is waterproof. Okay, and you got the right socks on. It's quite. Just pulled out. It's quite interesting that the some shoes, you know, are very different in the way they react to the gearbox lever. Now I've got I was out the other day, I was on the Classic 350 and I was wearing these sort of cowboy type leather boots, I suppose. You know, it wasn't quite like that, but I found that I couldn't change the gear easily on the Classic 350, and for a minute I thought, oh, what's wrong with my gearbox? And it wasn't a gearbox, it was the shoes. The shoes just didn't have the rigidity. It was like trying to change gear in bare feet, which is always worth watching out for, really. I've got some different boots on today. I've got these Merlin boots that I got off Vinted. They don't look like they've ever been worn. They're fantastic boots, really lovely. But some boots don't fit. They don't fit your bike. They're too big, they're too long, too thick. They won't go between the gear lever and your foot peg. You know, all little things like that. Always worth just checking. I've probably rattled on too long, haven't I? It's only a Wednesday episode. So that's it, really. Just, you know, think about what's going on the bike at the time of year and what you may come up against. You know, darkness coming early, you know, unforeseen rain showers. It's quite busy in Petworth today. But just watch out for yourself, watch out for other people, you know, because everybody else has got the same thing, you know, car drivers not paying attention. You know, maybe wear some fluorescent clothing. I'm a bit of a bugger that I don't tend to wear reflective clothing. It's not for me. It's a choice that I make, and it's a risk that I take. But I think it's quite important, and should never be derided for doing that. You know, if you want to wear that sort of clothing, do it. You know, you're a far cleverer person than I am, or smarter person than I am. Right, I got to nip off to where am I going? Oh, I've got to drop a film off to somebody at the coffee store. Maybe I'll get a cup of coffee. But yeah, it's just making people aware in it. It's just people think a little bit, and maybe worthwhile. And if anybody has got any tips for as we come into sort of autumn winter for people, stick them on the comments, because it's a great little community and it's just worth remembering those things. But please stay safe, ride safe out there, and I will see you in the next episode, which I have no idea what it's going to be. I'm that far behind at the moment. Alright, take care everybody, look after yourself, and see you soon.